Hey guys, we'll be discussing about the pivot to bioethics. So basically, this is history. This is telling us what happened to bioethics and how is it gone along the way. No? There was actually a time in history wherein bioethics was not given much attention. And then bioethics got lost its track in history. So parang nawala sa history natin, especially on the field of nursing. So what happens? In the 1960, what happened, I mean, in the 1960 class, the nursing education was moved into colleges, universities, from hospitals. So in the past, if you can notice, during the time of Florence Nightingale, they were trained in the hospitals. Then later on, this training was moved already to educational institutions, such as your schools. And this happened way back in 1960s. Now, what happened here? Instead, students of nurses teaching nursing ethics, what happened is that it was being handled by theologians. So you already have your theologians handling it. Okay, theologians. You also have your philosophers handling the course. So what did it result to? What happened? Parang hindi nila na-practice kung ano talaga yung sinasabi ng nursing. Parang hindi nila na-implement kung ano nga ba yung usual na dapat ini-implement sa nursing. Okay, so it's as if that the nursing specific ethics is being gone in the wind. No? Now, later on, the ethics education is done by school directors, shifted to philosophers and theologians, as I have mentioned. And in the late 1960s, medical advancement was enough. There is already advancement in technology, meron ng mga critical care units. Dati-rati kasi wala namang critical care units. Pag sinabing hospital, okay, the entire building is the hospital. All the patients are in the entire building. But as you can notice right now, you already have your critical care unit, you have your intensive care unit. So there are already specialized units that we have. So in the late 1960s class, the medical advancement has led to biomedical ethics. So what does this mean? 1960s, galing hospital, napunta sa schools yung education. Pagkatapos, nag-advance pa yung medicine. So ang focus class, instead na naging nursing ethics, yung focus na papunta sa medical ethics, na papunta sa biomedical ethics, and nursing ethics as a specific field is again being gone by the wind. Okay, konti po siyang nawawala. Now, what happened next? Once the medical ethics became on the prime of its years, once na sumikat sa medical ethics, yung ginawa, focus po siya masyado sa medicine. Focus siya masyado dun sa mga physicians. As mentioned, it's medically centered. Focus on physician paternalism, withdrawal of life-threatening treatment, and then futility. And it constituted a radical disjunction. So, focus is about the doctor's problem and not the nurse's problem in the past. Then plus the concept of principleism arise. No? The concept of principleism arise. What do you mean class by principleism? It means abstract, non-contextual, not situated, analytical ethical principles. In other words, these are general ethical principles that are used in the field of medicine and not specific to our field nursing. Ay abstract siya, ibig sabihin hindi po natin alam kung anong nangyayari there. Okay? It's not very specific to those that we are doing to our patients, but instead specific on the healthcare needs only of the patients. Then what possibly happens? There is an antithesis of the way in which nursing virtue and practice based on ethics had proceeded. Plus the principleism actually is also talking about the four major principles. That four major principles being your beneficence. One is your beneficence. Another one is non-maleficence. Non-maleficence. Another one is autonomy. Autonomy. And then the next one is justice. So according to the principle of principleism, these are now the four principles that needs to be followed in order for us to deliver what is ethically correct for our patient, what is ethically right for our patients. So beneficence, if we have still not mentioned this, it's doing good. Okay? Among the four class, what would refer to do no harm? Beneficence is doing good. Among the four, which would refer to do no harm? Among the choices indicated there. Sige na, among the choices indicated, which would refer to do no harm?
Beneficence, sir.
Beneficence, sir.
Beneficence class is do good. How about do no harm?
Non-maleficence.
Again?
Non-maleficence, sir.
Okay, that would be non-maleficence. Okay? How about if I will say giving someone what is due him or her? Giving someone what is due him or her.
Justice, sir.
Okay, that would be the principle of justice. Okay, giving someone what is due him or her. In other words, class, as much as you deserve. Okay, for example, plus justice is actually differentiated from equity. When I say equity, for example, among all of us, let's say, for example, this case right now, we are having our class. Let's say, for example, I will be giving out bonus points. And then I would say that the bonus points will be the same to all of you. That would be equity. But if I would say that the bonus points would be higher to those who are actively participating in class, that is justice. So when I say class equity, the same para sa lahat. There is equality, there is equity in everything. So the same sa lahat, as mentioned, the same bonus points will be given to all of you, for example. But when if I will say justice, I might say, okay, Kayla will receive higher points because Kayla have been more participative in this class. Okay, that's justice, giving someone what is due him or her. Or maybe I can say, okay, Una or Christine would be receiving more points because they are more participative in this class. That is justice, giving someone what is due him or her. Okay, so class, our goal in ethics is justice and not equity, because other authors are actually arguing that equity is just a dream to this world for it to happen. So equity is just a dream that might happen to this world. Okay, it could not be easily materialized. Now, how about the principle of self-determination? Among the four that I've written earlier, what refers to the principle of self-determination?
Autonomy, sir.
Very good. That would be your autonomy. Okay, autonomy. So class, as mentioned, when I say autonomy, it's myself. I am the one that is being admitted here. I am the patient here. I will be the one to decide if what will happen to my care. Okay, that's the principle of self-determination. Now, with that history that has been mentioned, guys, so the main message there is this. There was a transition from the hospital going towards the school education of nurses. And then instead of nursing ethics, the focus became medical ethics. Now, class bioethics came into picture. And when I say class bioethics, it is derived from the two words. The two words class for bioethics is life. Okay, bio is life, just like your biology. And then ethics class is behavior. So bio is life and ethics class is behavior. Now, your bioethics class is because it's born as a response to scientific social progress. Anong nangyayari? Bakit sasabihin natin na response to scientific social progress? Plus, there's a lot of improvement in medicine that the question arises, what's the limit of the human being? Is this really helping us as humans, or will this be a threat to us later on? Okay, what are the concerns that are raising because of this? Particular example, GMOs. I don't know if you've heard in your biology, your GMOs. Plus your GMOs are genetically modified organisms. We are already having a lot of genetically modified organisms. Okay? For example, you would encounter root crops wherein resistant na siya sa pest. You would encounter food products which is, they say, quote unquote, perfect taste. Okay? These are genetically modified organisms. In other words, guys, the genes of the organism has been changed. The gene of the organism was updated, modified, revised to suit with the needs of the humans. And then the questions there would arise, who are we to do that? We are not God. Are we God? That's the usual questions that are being placed. So with that class, bioethics came into picture. Okay? For example, transplantation. When is transplantation ethical? Okay? For example, heart transplant. A lot of patients needs heart transplant. But can I get a heart from somebody who is alive? Of course, you could not, because the heart, once you would harvest the heart, that person would die. So when is it ethical to donate the heart? How would I know that the cadaver, somebody who is dead, would want to donate his heart to a certain patient? That's why class the bioethics has given into consideration. Okay? So there are a lot of threatening conditions actually that prompted the birth of bioethics. If you can recall your lessons in history, I think you can recall some of this. One class is your Nuremberg Code. Okay, Let's start first with your Tuskegee study. Okay, class, Tuskegee study. Your Tuskegee study is a 40-year human experimentation that actually happened in America. Class, one particular disease here that is being experimented is your syphilis. Okay, one particular disease here that's being experimented is your syphilis. Now, class, what's syphilis? Your syphilis is a blood-borne disorder. It's considered to be affected by Treponema pallidum, which is transmitted through your blood. Now, your problem here is that once your patient would have severe syphilis, the brain of your patient would be affected, the heart of your patient would be affected. Actually, class, almost all organs of the patient would be affected. Now, what happened to these 40 years of human experiment in America? Guys, what they did was that in a certain camp, there's a camp there where in class people are being injected with syphilis, and then they are being experimented on if what will happen to them, how many years will it take for them to die, what medications is effective, what are the side effects of the medications. These humans have been experimented for 40 years. Okay? Try to look at the study, guys. If you are not still familiar of this, try to research on this, the Tuskegee study. Okay, you will notice that there are still living survivors as of this time, and they will be able to narrate. There are videos in YouTube which would narrate their experiences. Okay, so imagine 40 years of human experimentation. If you would look at that class at present, you are not allowed to do that. Okay, imagine mambal ka lang, you would just say, hey, I want to study syphilis. Let's inject syphilis to you. Would you allow that to happen? If people would even say, hey, let's study COVID, let's try to spread COVID just for us to know what is the effects of COVID, that will be unethical for us to do it. Okay? It's very unethical for us to do it, but it had happened for 40 years in this Tuskegee study. Now look at this article. Try to read the heading, class. From Tuskegee to COVID, why African Americans do not participate in research. Class, during kasi the Tuskegee study and the syphilis study that was conducted, the main participants were African Americans. And that's why people are saying that some of the critics of the Tuskegee study would say that this is what do you call that? May bias ba sa race? Okay, there is racial discrimination. That's why only the Black Americans, only the African Americans were considered part of the study. Now, look at the effect. Even until present, students, they would not participate in research because of the fear that this study has given them. Okay? Those are among the things that gave rise to bioethics. Another, you have your Nuremberg trials. Guys, this is a screenshot from the search that I had in the internet, so that you will be encouraged also to read from the internet what is the Nuremberg Code. Guys, your Nuremberg Code is brought about by what has been done during the Nazi dictatorship. Okay? I don't know if you've heard of German history, if you've read German history, but during those times, guys, people will be experimented. For example, they will have somebody naked, and then they will send this person to the ice caps. They will send these people to winter, and then find out if how long will the person die. Find out how long will the person's heart will stop. Find out how long will the person's hands freeze. And then plus there are also experiments wherein they would inject bacteria and then find out what is the drug that is effective. There are also experiments among twins. There are a lot of experiments done during the Nazi dictatorship. And then why is it called the Nuremberg Code? Plus the Nuremberg Code is actually the product of the Nuremberg trials. Again, class, it's a product of the Nuremberg trials. And the Nuremberg is actually a place in Germany where the trial took place. So when the people became knowledgeable of what is happening, so there was this Nuremberg trial that occurred. This is an international trial. Okay, what was the main message of the Nuremberg trial? That even class, the highest authority of the land, may that be the president, the prime minister, or the queen, he could be subjected to trial if something wrong is being done. In this case, for example, during that time, guys, it was sanctioned by their government. It is the government that's telling them, let's capture twins and let's experiment what's happening to the twins. Okay? And then sadly, I don't know if it's really right to say it's sad, most of the results of these Nuremberg occurrences were already gone by the wind. They were destroyed by the physicians. They were also destroyed by the nurses who participated in the same research. Okay, so I hope that you will understand that that is not already allowed as of present time. Okay, now look at this class. These are actually the product of your Nuremberg Code, and this is actually what is indicated in the Nuremberg Code. One, the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. So in other words, I could tell Tarin, hey Tarin, you need to participate in the research or else I will fail you in the bioethics class. That could not be. Okay? I'm threatening her. Or I could not tell Kayla, hey Kayla, if you will not be participating in my research, you will not be able to enter our college. That's threatening. If somebody would do that to you, you can actually sue him or her in courts of law because it should be voluntary. Next, the experiment should be such as to yield fruitful results for the goods of the society. In other words, class, for example, you could not just carry out an experiment and then say, I just want to do it because I simply want to do it. No, there needs to be social value. There needs to be social value. Right? So in other words, class, the benefits should outweigh the risk. Next, class, the experiment should be designed based on the results of animal experimentation. So if you would look at pharmacologic studies right now, if we are developing new drugs, guys, hindi pa pwede na right away inject mo siya to human beings. The drug class needs to be injected or needs to be tested among animals first before it would be tested among humans. And even in animals right now, because of animals' rights advocate, you could not right away do it directly to the animal without first doing an experiment in the laboratory that indeed it is beneficial. In such a way, class, that if you know it's not beneficial, do not try it to the animal because animals already have their own rights. Okay, that's one thing that this situation has brought us. Now, another thing, so the fourth there is that the experiment should be conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering. So for example, guys, right now, if I will be conducting my research in psychology, I would need to ensure that there will be a psychiatrist that will be helping me. For example, I'm interviewing Zyla, and then along the way, Zyla cried hard. And then Zyla recalled some of the sad experiences. I should be able to refer Zyla to a health professional to help her. Okay, it should not be a traumatic experience to Zyla. Then no experiment should be conducted when there is a reason to believe that death will occur. For example, during the rat experiments that I had, 10 out of the 100 rats died. I could not just say, it's okay, it's just 10%. But come on, if 10% of the population will die, will that be okay? Okay, so it's not. It's not. So it needs to be pre-experimented. Then the degree of risk class should never exceed that determined by humanitarian importance to be solved by the problem. As mentioned earlier, the benefits should outweigh the risk. Then there should be proper preparation and adequate facilities provided to protect the experimental subject. If you would look at it in pharmacologic studies, especially class, for example, cancer drugs, a lot of research kasi is ongoing on cancer drugs. So once class, they will sign up for the research, they are educated. Sir, this is not a sure drug. This is an experimental drug. It offers you possible hope for cancer, but it does not really offer 100% cure. So ina-explain sa kanila kung ano ang possible effect, ano ang possible harm that could happen to them because of the experiment. And then class, these medications are actually given in the hospital setting while the patient is in the hospital bed in such a way that if the patient will have untoward signs and reactions, right away the patient could be prompted. So hindi pwede na, sir, doon ka lang sa bahay namin, mag-medication experiment tayo. No, we could not do that. That's a violation of human rights. Then class, the experiment should be conducted by qualified persons. For example, I'm a nurse, guys. I could not actually do experiments on medications because it is the physician who is qualified to do that. It is the pharmacist who is qualified to do that. Okay, so there should be qualification. That's why if you are conducting research, you would notice that ethics committee would also ask for the qualification of the participants. And the qualification, I mean, of the researchers, for them to know whether the researcher is indeed qualified to do it or not. Then class, during the course of the experiment, the human subject should be at the liberty to bring the experiment to an end. Meaning class, for example, no, if you get tired, feel mo lang. Okay, for example, Bobby would say, sir, ayaw ko na ng experiment mo. I don't want to participate. Bobby can just go out. And then I could not blame Bobby. I could not tell Bobby, hey, you need to pay me because you had pre-termination. No, Bobby is free to leave the research anytime she would decide to do so because those are parts of her rights. Okay, and then lastly, guys, during the course of the experiment, the scientist in charge must be also ready to terminate the experiment at any stage. So for example, halimbawa na notice, 5 of the patients already have adverse reactions. There is no need for the research to continue because you already know that it has harmful effects to a certain degree of population. Okay? So class, dapat i-exercise yan ng physician. Okay? Or exercise yan ng somebody who is doing the research. Now, these are some of the pictures that you can find online that depicts what happened during the Nazi dictatorship. Dr. Mengele is actually the evil doctor in Auschwitz. Auschwitz is a place in Germany where they conducted the experiment. So Mengele was among the top doctors there who are involved on the human experimentation. So I will try to ask you to view a clip on the Nazi and their recovery, and then I will try to ask you some questions pertinent to it. So on the picture on the upper right hand, you can see that the human there is forced to have the injections even if she did not want to. Then plus, if you would look at these people here going out of the fence, they're actually going inside the concentration camps. So as you can see, there are barbed wires, there is protection. Okay, they could not go out at their will. Okay, so they are imprisoned there and they are being experimented. They are being observed on what are the things that they are doing. So again, right now, that is not anymore allowed, and because that is already considered to be unethical. Okay, so I hope class that this little view of your history would be able to give you a chance to understand why right now we are very strict with ethical guidelines. Because after all, we are protecting human rights and we are protecting the survival of our human race. So it could not be that we will just be doing experiments without reason. It needs to follow ethical guidelines. Okay?